The conversation begins with a discussion about recent news concerning the FBI's handling of information related to a potential assassination attempt on Donald Trump. Vivek Ramaswamy mentions that social media platform Gab received an emergency document request from the FBI, suggesting that the agency knew or believed the account belonging to the would-be assassin was posting different content than what the FBI publicly stated. This raises questions about the FBI's transparency and honesty with the public. Matt Taibbi, drawing from his experience as a journalist, provides context on the FBI's evolution. He explains that since the beginning of the War on Terror, the FBI has transformed from primarily a law enforcement agency into more of a general-purpose, investigative and intelligence-gathering organization. This shift has allowed the FBI to conduct investigations without needing a specific predicate or demonstrable cause, as was previously required. Taibbi notes that in the past, the FBI was more focused on providing factual information related to specific investigations. However, in recent years, there has been a concerning symbiosis between a less diligent press and an FBI that issues vague, off-the-record statements. He cites examples of the FBI claiming to have conducted numerous interviews while professing to have no information about potential motives, which he finds implausible. Ramaswamy and Taibbi agree that this situation reflects a broader issue of unelected officials effectively running the government, leading to a loss of accountability that undermines the principles of the American Revolution. They discuss the historical context of the FBI's behavior, with Ramaswamy suggesting that the agency's tendency to view the law as a constraint rather than a motivator dates back to J. Edgar Hoover's era. Taibbi shares insights from his interactions with FBI agents over the years, noting a shift in the agency's culture. He mentions that many agents who viewed their roles as traditional law enforcement have become disenchanted with the Bureau's new direction, which heavily emphasizes counterintelligence work. The conversation touches on the history of the FBI, with Ramaswamy recommending a book called G-Man that provides a detailed account of the agency's past. They discuss how the FBI's current behavior is not unprecedented when viewed through a historical lens, and how this context should inform our understanding of present-day actions. The discussion moves to the scale of government overreach and civil liberties abuses in the post-9/11 era compared to the present day. Taibbi expresses his belief that such abuses are now epidemic, citing examples like the misuse of FISA warrants and the FBI's involvement in domestic speech issues, as revealed by the Twitter files. Taibbi draws on his experience living in Russia for 11 years, contrasting the Russian public's understanding of government institutions with the more naive American perspective. He suggests that Americans are still catching up to the reality of how their government operates, having long held a more idealistic view of their institutions. Ramaswamy posits an interesting theory that the danger to citizenry might actually be worse in the United States because Americans are not conditioned to expect government overreach, unlike in countries with more overt authoritarian histories. Taibbi agrees, noting that Americans' lack of suspicion towards their media and government systems leaves them more vulnerable to manipulation. The conversation shifts to the relationship between the media and government, with Taibbi expressing concern about the apparent coordination between Democratic Party talking points and media narratives. He cites recent examples of politicians and media figures using the same language to describe political opponents as weird, suggesting a lack of independence in journalism. Taibbi reflects on his experiences as a journalist in Russia during the 1990s, contrasting the brief period of robust investigative journalism there with the current state of American media. He emphasizes the difficulty of restoring a free press once it has been compromised, drawing parallels to the current situation in the United States. Ramaswamy and Taibbi discuss the recent Democratic strategy of labeling Republican politicians and their ideas as weird. They both express disappointment with this approach, viewing it as an unproductive form of political discourse that goes against the spirit of American exceptionalism. Ramaswamy argues that America's weirdness relative to human history is part of what makes the country exceptional, citing examples of founding fathers and historical figures who were considered unconventional in their time. He suggests that embracing the label of weird might be a more effective response for Republicans, rather than engaging in a back and forth about which side is weirder. Taibbi agrees, noting the irony of the current American left using weird as an insult when they typically celebrate transgressive ideas and behaviors. They both express concern that this type of discourse distracts from substantive policy discussions and undermines national unity. The conversation turns to the topic of election integrity and voting processes. Taibbi mentions his intention to study election security laws and mechanics, recognizing the likelihood of controversy surrounding the upcoming November election. Ramaswamy shares insights from his visit to Puerto Rico, discussing their voting practices, such as single-day voting, making Election Day a holiday, and requiring government-issued ID to vote. He argues for implementing similar measures in the mainland United States to enhance public trust in elections. The discussion touches on various aspects of voting, including automatic voter registration, English-only ballots, and the idea of requiring citizens to pass a civics test similar to what is required of immigrants seeking citizenship. Ramaswamy suggests that these measures could serve as both integrity-enhancing components and unifying civic rituals. Taibbi acknowledges the traditional democratic resistance to voter ID requirements, but agrees that proving one's identity to vote shouldn't be controversial. They both express support for making voting a more deliberate civic act, potentially including stricter requirements for citizenship and voting rights. Both Ramaswamy and Taibbi express skepticism about allowing individuals to vote in elections of multiple countries, suggesting that citizens should have to choose one country in which to exercise their voting rights. Throughout the conversation, Taibbi reflects on his background as a lifelong Democrat and his disillusionment with the party in recent years. He notes the shift in attitudes towards free speech and civil liberties, with many on the left abandoning principles they once championed. Ramaswamy, identifying himself as right of center and a Republican candidate for president, acknowledges the complexity of current political alignments. He expresses appreciation for Taibbi's perspective as someone who is untethered with respect to the ministerial partisan politics, but deeply concerned with ideology. Both Ramaswamy and Taibbi agree that traditional ideas of left and right have become less meaningful in the current political landscape. They recognize that there are opportunities for realignment on issues such as foreign policy, domestic surveillance, and civil liberties. The conversation between Ramaswamy and Matt Taibbi covers a wide range of topics, from FBI transparency and government overreach to media independence and election integrity. Throughout the discussion, both participants express concern about the state of American democracy, the erosion of civil liberties, and the quality of public discourse. They emphasize the importance of maintaining a free press, protecting individual rights, and fostering a more substantive political dialogue that goes beyond partisan labeling. The conversation highlights the complex and evolving nature of American politics, suggesting that traditional left-right divisions may be giving way to new alignments based on shared concerns about government power and individual freedoms.